The afternoon light was thin and golden, slanting through the blinds in Emily's apartment. It smelled of vanilla and freshly printed paper. She was a whirlwind of tool and checklists, a beautiful, panicked bride-to-be. "Sarah, you're the only one I can trust with this," she said, her voice a soft flutter. "The guest list, it's too much. The RSVPs, the seating chart, the dietary restrictions, please." She handed me a thick binder, its cover embossed with silver letters. I took it, the weight of the binder feeling significant in my hands. It wasn't just a list of names, it was power. Emily had no idea what she was giving me. She saw it as a task, a burden to be offloaded. I saw it as a tool, a way to finally make things right, to balance the scales. The real reason I accepted wasn't to help her. It was for him. For David. My father. The last time I saw him was 10 years ago. He said he had to go. He said he'd call. He didn't. He rebuilt his life somewhere else, with someone else, and for a decade, my mother and I were just faded memories. Emily, with her endless capacity for forgiveness, had reconnected with him last year. I couldn't understand it. How do you just let go of that kind of pain? He wasn't on our Christmas card list. He wasn't at our graduation. Why should he be at her wedding? My anger, a cold, hard stone in my chest, was my guiding light. I flipped through the pages, my finger tracing over the names of aunts, uncles, cousins, old family friends. And there it was, in neat typed letters. David Sullivan, father of the bride. I smiled, a small private thing. This was my chance to be the gatekeeper, to decide who was worthy of a seat at the table. He had decided he was done with us once. Now, it was my turn to do the same to him. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rest of it. My bitterness wasn't a sudden storm. It was a slow, creeping erosion, like a river carving through stone. It started the day he packed his bags. The day he stood in our living room, the late afternoon sun illuminating the dust motes in the air, a finality in his posture I'll never forget. He promised us, "This isn't goodbye." But the hollow ache in my mother's eyes told a different story. And so, for 10 years, he was a ghost in our lives. A name whispered with a mixture of sadness and frustration. Emily, ever the optimist, believed he would return. She'd leave extra space at the dinner table on holidays, her gaze always drifting to the front door. I learned to stop looking. I learned to fill that space with my own silence, my own resentment. The hurt hardened into a shield, and I learned to mistake my anger for strength. When he finally reached out, a year ago, it was like he was a stranger calling from another planet. Emily was thrilled. She forgave him in a single, tearful phone call. I hung up the minute he said my name. For her, it was a reunion. For me, it was a reminder of all the years he missed, the dances he didn't attend, the birthdays he never showed up for. He was a father to a new family now, a new daughter, a new wife. He had moved on. He had forgotten. How could I welcome him back with open arms as if nothing had happened? The wedding was a sacred day for Emily, and I wasn't going to let him tarnish it with his presence, not after he had so easily abandoned us. I sat with the binder in my lap, the pages rustling with the suburban breeze from the open window. It felt like holding a history book, filled with chapters of my own pain. David Sullivan's name was a scar on the page. Emily's forgiveness was a wound she had healed on her own, a path I couldn't follow. My path was different. My path was revenge. The planning consumed me. I didn't just manage the list, I obsessed over it. Every name was a chess piece. I sent out the RSVPs with a cool efficiency that surprised even me. My mother would call, bubbling with details about her dress or the flowers, but I was always fixated on the names. "Did you hear from the Johnsons?" she'd ask. "Did Aunt Carol get her invitation?" I'd answer her, but my mind was always on one name. A name that felt like a weight, David Sullivan. I meticulously organized the seating chart, placing people based on their relationships, their potential for good conversation. My cousin Mark, a jovial extrovert, was at the head table with my mother and Emily. My old neighbor, Mrs. Gable, was placed with her long-lost friend from college. Everyone had a place. Everyone, it seemed, but him. A part of me, a small, quiet voice I had long learned to ignore, whispered a question. Is this right? But I silenced it quickly. I told myself I was protecting Emily. He was too unreliable. What if he flaked out again? What if he showed up and caused a scene? I framed my actions not as a vindictive act, but as a necessary evil. I convinced myself I was the vigilant older sister, the protector, ensuring her wedding was perfect and drama-free. This wasn't about me. It was about her. My heart knew it was a lie, but my mind had built an impenetrable fortress around it. I opened the guest list on my laptop one night, the screen casting a cold blue light on my face. I scrolled down. David Sullivan. I hovered my cursor over his name, my finger twitching. It would be so easy to delete it, to pretend the invitation was lost in the mail, to tell Emily he hadn't RSVP'd. The perfect, elegant solution. It felt like I was holding a match and a can of gasoline. I knew I was about to do something terrible, but the prospect of the small, quiet victory was too tempting to resist. The week of the wedding was a blur of last-minute preparations. The weather was a classic New England late spring day, warm with a hint of a breeze. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Emily, her excitement practically vibrating through the screen. My own feelings were a jumble of suppressed tension. I felt like a spy on a mission, every action calculated and secretive. One evening, as I was double-checking the final head count, a message from an unfamiliar number popped up. I opened it. It was from him. Hey Sarah, just wanted to tell you how excited I am for Saturday. It means the world to me that I can be there for Em. Thanks for everything you've done. See you soon. Dad. My breath hitched. The message was so simple, so genuine. He wasn't a ghost in the machine. He was a real person, with a real phone, and a genuine, if naive, belief that everything was okay. My fingers trembled as I read it again. The stone in my chest felt a little less cold. For a moment, a wave of guilt washed over me, so strong I almost couldn't breathe. Was this what I wanted? To cause him pain? To hurt my own sister? The moment passed. The familiar anger surged back, a bitter shield against a decade of hurt. He didn't deserve to be there. He hadn't earned it. He couldn't just send a text message and expect to be part of the family again. Not after all this time. I looked at the guest list on my screen, the cursor blinking patiently next to his name. My heart hardened, the final piece of the fortress locking into place. With a firm press of the delete key, I made the final cut. His name vanished. The deed was done. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We've got more emotional dramas coming your way, so ring that notification bell. The morning of the wedding was a chaos of organized beauty. The sun was brilliant, painting the suburban landscape with a blinding light. Emily was a vision in her dress, a cloud of ivory lace, her smile so wide it made her eyes crinkle. My mother, her face etched with a peaceful joy, looked years younger. I was dressed in a simple sage-green bridesmaid dress, my exterior a calm facade, a mirror of my sister's tranquility. Inside, I was a coiled spring. I felt like a fraud. Every laugh I faked, every congratulatory hug I gave, felt like a betrayal. The ceremony was beautiful, a perfect fusion of traditional vows and personal promises. I watched Emily and her now husband, Liam, as they said their I do's, a tear slipping down my cheek. It was a day of absolute perfection. Almost. During the cocktail hour, I found myself avoiding eye contact with people I knew would ask questions. I saw my mother's cousin, a kind woman named Aunt Margaret, scanning the crowd. Her eyes landed on me. "Sarah, where's your father?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. I haven't seen David in years. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "Oh, he couldn't make it," I said, my voice unnaturally high. Something came up at the last minute. The lie tasted like ash on my tongue. Aunt Margaret nodded, a look of disappointment on her face, but she didn't press. I was off the hook, but the relief was temporary. The lie was out there now. It was a tangible thing, floating in the festive air. I kept looking for a sign of Emily's unease. A quick glance over her shoulder, a moment of confusion. But she was in a bubble of happiness, lost in the new reality of being a wife. The shadow I had created was still unseen. The reception hall was a testament to Emily's meticulous planning. The tables were adorned with white roses and soft candlelight. The air was filled with the clinking of glasses and the joyful murmur of 100 conversations. I sat at the head table, forcing down a piece of chicken, the food tasting like cardboard. My mother was laughing, truly laughing next to me. I watched her, and for a fleeting second, I saw the younger, more vibrant woman from before the divorce, and for the first time, I wondered if I had done this to her as much as to him. A little later, after the toasts, I got up to get a glass of water. A couple of my high school friends waved me over. "Sarah!" One of them, Jessica, said, her face flushed with wine. "This is an incredible wedding. Did you manage the guest list? You must be so good with details." I nodded, a tight smile on my face. "I'm so glad your dad came. I haven't seen him since senior prom." "Where's he seated?" The question hung in the air, a bell tolling a warning. I felt the color drain from my face. "He's not here," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Jessica's smile faltered. "Oh, but I saw a text from him that he was on his way. He was so excited." I shook my head, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. "He couldn't make it." I repeated the lie, more forcefully this time. Jessica, sensing my unease, changed the subject, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The knot in my stomach tightened. I glanced over at Emily, who was dancing with her new husband, a look of pure bliss on her face. Her happiness was the only thing I had cared about, and I had just started to poison it. The night wore on. The music grew louder, the dancing more frantic. Emily pulled me to the dance floor, her eyes shining. "This is the best night of my life, Sarah," she shouted over the music. We danced for a few songs, the rhythm a hollow echo of my own frantic pulse. Then, she pulled me by the arm, her expression suddenly serious. "Let's get some air." We stepped out into a small garden area behind the reception hall. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth. The music was a faint thump in the distance. "Sarah, what's going on?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Liam's cousin said they saw a text from Dad saying he was on his way here. Then Jessica said something about it too. Where is he?" I felt my carefully constructed facade crack. I tried to deflect. "He couldn't come. I already told everyone that. He had a family emergency. It was last minute." The lies tumbled out, sloppy and desperate. Emily's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me. I know you, Sarah. You're a terrible liar." Her voice wasn't angry. It was laced with a deep, crushing disappointment. "I called him. He said he never got an invitation. He never even got an RSVP card. He said you handled the guest list." The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. The cold knot in my chest, my constant companion, finally gave way to a hot, prickly shame. "He didn't deserve to be here," I whispered, the words like shattered glass. "After what he did to us. He abandoned us, Emily." He had no right to show up and pretend everything was okay. I did it for you. I was protecting you. Tears filled Emily's eyes. Protecting me, she said, her voice trembling. From my own father? I forgave him, Sarah. I made my peace with him. This wasn't for me. This was for you. You did this because you couldn't move on. And you took away a moment from me that I can never get back. The words were a direct hit. I had tried to hurt him, but I had only managed to wound her. This is a turning point. If you want to see what happens next, please make sure you're subscribed. We're not finished yet, and you won't want to miss the emotional conclusion. I watched Emily walk back into the reception hall, her shoulders slumped. My stomach churned. The music and laughter from inside felt like a cruel mockery. I stood alone in the cool night air, the soft glow of the hall's lights highlighting the emptiness around me. My victory was hollow. I had succeeded in my mission, but the spoils were nothing but shame and regret. My mother found me a few minutes later. Her face was a mask of sadness. I heard what happened, she said, her voice quiet. I always wondered why David didn't send an RSVP. I just thought it was like him to forget. She shook her head. Sarah, your father was a flawed man. He made mistakes. But he was trying to be better. He was trying to be here for Emily. And you took that from her. Her words weren't a scolding. They were a profound disappointment. A verdict. I had hurt the two people I had claimed to be protecting. My grand, righteous act of revenge had only served to isolate me. I wandered back inside. The party was still in full swing, but to me, the air felt thick and oppressive. I was alone in a crowd of 100 people. Every smiling face, every clinking glass, felt like a spotlight on my mistake. I saw Emily dancing with Liam again, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. She kept glancing over at me, a flicker of pain in her gaze before she would quickly look away. The damage was done. My anger had been a weapon, and I had aimed it at my father, but it had ricocheted, hitting my sister and my mother instead. I felt a profound, chilling loneliness. I had been so convinced that my revenge would make me feel whole. I thought it would bring me a sense of justice, a finality to a decade of pain. But all it had done was expose the depth of my bitterness and the shallowness of my own emotional healing. The next day, the cold, gray morning felt like a mirror of my mood. The sun was hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds. I called Emily, my heart a lump in my throat. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. She didn't pick up. I left a shaky voice message. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry. The words felt small and insignificant against the magnitude of my mistake. She texted me a few hours later. I need some time, Sarah. You took a piece of my day. I'm not sure if you did it to hurt him or to hurt me, but you hurt me. I can't just pretend it's okay. I read the message, and a single hot tear rolled down my cheek. Her forgiveness was not going to be as easy as her father's had been. I finally did what I had avoided doing for a decade. I called him. I didn't want to explain myself. I didn't want to justify my actions. I just wanted to hear his voice, a voice that was no longer a ghost, but a person I had deeply wronged. He answered on the third ring. "Hello, Sarah?" he said, his voice hesitant. "Dad," I said, the word feeling foreign and heavy on my tongue. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe anger, maybe a lecture. But all he said was, "I know. It's okay. I'm just glad you called." The simplicity of his words broke me. He wasn't angry. He was just a person who had also suffered. and had chosen forgiveness over retribution. My revenge hadn't brought me peace. It had only brought me to the bottom of my own pain. I had been so focused on punishing him for the past that I had almost lost my future, my relationships with the two most important people in my life. The path to healing was a long one, and I knew I had to walk it. Months passed. The initial chasm between Emily and me began to close, but it was a slow, deliberate process. We started with short, cautious texts, then moved to brief phone calls. The laughter and easy banter we once shared were replaced by a fragile, new kind of communication, built on a foundation of honesty and a shared understanding of my mistake. She told me she loved me, but she needed to know that I had learned from this, that I was no longer the girl who let her anger dictate her actions. I began to meet my father for coffee every few weeks. Our conversations were awkward at first. We talked about his new life, his wife, his new home. I listened, truly listened for the first time. I learned about the difficult choices he had made, the regrets he carried. I started to see him not as the man who abandoned us, but as a flawed, complex person who was trying, in his own clumsy way, to make things right. I was slowly beginning to see the world in shades of gray instead of the black and white of my own anger. On a rainy Sunday afternoon, Emily invited me over for dinner. When I arrived, the scent of her famous roasted chicken filled the apartment. I walked into the kitchen, and there, sitting at the table, was my father. He smiled at me, a soft, genuine smile. Emily turned from the stove, her eyes meeting mine. "He's our dad, Sarah," she said, her voice warm. "And you're my sister. We're a family. We might be a little broken, but we're here now." I sat down at the table, a feeling of humility and relief washing over me. I had managed the guest list, and in my bitterness, I had erased the one name that mattered most. But by confessing my mistake and starting to truly heal, I had found a way to write it back in. The wedding had been my rock bottom, but it had also been the start of my long road home. I had finally found a place at the table, not through control or revenge, but through honesty and forgiveness. Thank you for watching this story. If you were touched by Sarah's journey, don't forget to like and share this video, and of course, subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories just like this one.